After weeks of finally waiting for the Last of Us series to come out, I actually wasn't severely disappointed. Immediately when it did come out, I was kind of worried. I had a sense of worry set inside of me because of what I was about to watch. After sitting there for weeks looking at Twitter threads of how the director of the Last of Us series was shitting on the game, kinda, just constantly sitting there making really stupid points and even telling the actors not to play the game, I was extremely worried we were on to a verge of a Halo and Dragon Ball Z adaptation. But that was really far from the case. I mean, when I started to watch it, I immediately was thinking that this isn't following the script of the game, and I was kind of skeptical of it. But the more I sat down to watch the hour-and-a-half long first episode, the debut of The Last of Us series on HBO, I began to realize that the show isn't just for people that would sit there and watch the game. I saw that the show was more catered to the people who haven't really watched or played the game yet, so it makes a lot of sense as to what and why they would do it like that. But in the very first episode, we get a lot more depth into Sarah and Joel's relationship, which I really did like, actually. I think it made a lot more meat for the series instead of just having us go right into it, kick right into the action. It let us kind of sit back, relax, and see the relationship that Sarah had with Tommy and Joel. Keep in mind, this really is the only first episode of it, so it could immediately go to shit. For example, I'm not really in support of them removing spores and replace for tendrils. I'm not really in support of a lot of things that the director has said for this, because Craig Mazin, the director, has said a lot of stupid things, like it's just watching pixels die, so it's going to be a lot more deeper into the show. I can confirm to you now, when I play The Last of Us for the first time, seeing Sarah die hurt a lot more than it did seeing Sarah die in the show, although it was such a great way for her to die in the show. She did such a great job with the acting she portrayed in there. It was amazing. It almost brought me to a tear. It was really good. Another thing that had me really excited for this up-and-coming series right before we started to watch it last night, well, the main thing that I was really excited for, the thing that really made me think that this adaptation could actually be good and not crap, was the fact that Joel Miller was going to be played as Pedro Pascal. It was such a good thing to see that they were going to bring in one of my favorite role actors as the leading main character of the series. Not only that, I saw that Bella Ramsey was going to be played as Ellie, and at first I was extremely skeptical. The more I saw of Bella Ramsey acting as Ellie, I kind of just sat there and I would think to myself, well, this doesn't look like Ellie at all, and I don't really know how I felt. But the more I saw her talk about how she felt about playing Ellie and the things that people would say about her playing Ellie, I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt, although I don't know much about her acting. So the more I looked into her, the more interviews I saw and read from her and watched from her, I decided that she actually does quite fit the role for her. It was actually extremely good casting. And sitting down watching her act in the first episode, even though we don't see much of her, I can already tell you that it does fit her. Like, seeing her play as Ellie, it's almost a perfect fit. Even if the looks aren't there at all, I mean, it just fits her. It's almost identical to Ellie from what I've seen, especially with the way she acts and her mannerisms. I'm really excited to see if they don't mess this up in the future, which I hope to God they don't. It's such a good series so far, and honestly, it could be one of those standalone things. It could be what The Walking Dead was supposed to be, in my opinion, but I'm really excited to see where this goes. The next thing I really wanted to talk about was how fucking great the scene was between the game and the HBO series of Sarah's death. I think they did that scene so fucking well. Even if it wasn't portrayed exactly how it was in the game, I think they still did such a great fucking way with it. Like, it was so amazing. It was really captivating, and it could even almost make me feel like I was about to cry over something that I already knew was going to happen over a multitude of times of playing them. I already knew it was going to come, and it still kind of shocked me in the moment. Sarah's death was ultimately one of the main driving forces in this game that made me want to keep playing from the start. It made you really feel for Joel from the get-go, even though you didn't know much about him from the start. I mean, they made this so fucking well. This is one of the very few adaptations, or probably the only adaptation, where I can sit there and proudly say that the show did it better than the game, in my opinion. I'm going to say this, for example, I think the actual death overall was most likely, in my opinion, done better by the game. At least that's how I feel. But I feel like the background and leading up to the death, it was so much better in the show than it was in the game, because in the game, I get it, it's a game. You have to kind of just get right into it, keep people hooked, keep it on the way to go. Just make sure that people want to keep playing your game instead of, like, dropping it within the first hour saying, this is shit and not worth my time. And God, the fucking acting from Pedro Pascal on this scene was so fucking amazing. And the cut to what happens right after, I would try to remain spoiler free, but if you're gonna watch the show, you most likely know what happens in the game, but this is something that doesn't. So right after this happens, it cuts to a child wandering alone through a forest, and then in that forest, he cuts through a patch of trees, which ultimately lead to the city, which ultimately lead to the Boston QZ. Shortly after that child goes there, he's taken into this containment room with these people. They check to see if he's infected or not. It cuts to say that this woman said that she's going to give him some food and get him all cleaned up, then they can have like a good time in a minute. And then it cuts to show Joel and Tess putting bodies in a fire or a fire pit and burning them, getting rid of the infection people. And then it cuts to the Tess looking at Joel and says, "There's a kid in there." Then it shows that same kid, and I think it really builds up the environment. This show ultimately has such fucking great world building. It makes you want to keep watching. It kept me captivated through the entire episode. Not one episode did I want to sit there and get on my phone to do something else. Today's video was purely just here to discuss what I thought about The Last of Us series and how I think it's not fucking terrible and how it's a lot better than I would have ever expected it to be. Ultimately, what I'm thinking is that this show has the potential to be one of the best zombie shows to ever exist. I know that the people who talk about the best ones to ever exist, like the main one that you would think of in a show aspect is The Walking Dead show. But I think this show just has a lot more to it than The Walking Dead has ever had, in my opinion, especially when it just comes to the zombies. The zombies are such a crucial part, and it's such a great part with how not only they spread, but with how they act. Within the first scene that you see of zombies, you see them moving extremely erotic, jumping over fucking tables to get to Joel and Sarah, running extremely fast, and it keeps things so entertained. But I'm also extremely worried about a few things, especially with Craig Mazin, the producer of the show. His mindset of the whole, it's just watching pixels die thing is extremely fucking stupid. Why would you shit on the base main thing that you're going off of? You're shitting on the main script to all the people who enjoyed and loved the main script. Without them, no one would have watched it. Also, the thing with removing spores and replacing them with tendrils, I don't really know how that's going to go, but when it does get to The Last of Us Part 2, remaining spoiler-free here, there's going to be a very big scene with spores that you're going to want to keep them with. That's why I'm really kind of worried about it. But another thing I had a problem with was making it to where the first original events occurred in 2003 instead of 2013. You lose about 10 years of technology there, which is kind of fucking willy, silly, and billy, but you know what? I mean, it is what it is. So far, it's been pretty fucking good, and I haven't really had a single problem with it yet, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. It's ultimately probably the best adaptation for anything to ever exist, from what I know. That really is all that I had to discuss for this entire video. I just wanted to get on here and say that I have very high hopes for this series. I think it's going to be one of the best adaptations to exist. I think it has a lot of potential, even a potential to have its own spin-off of its own standalone series with its own thing if they don't want to stick to the games after they finish 1 and 2. But I just wish that they would be more open-minded with the stuff that is in the game, like especially telling your main actors who need to know and feel what the people in the game felt to kind of captivate and capture what was in that moment, not to play the games and saying it's just pixels, which is really fucking stupid. You're just shitting on the main story. But as I said, that's really all I had to discuss with you guys for today. I think that the series is fucking great, and my final rating for the first episode overall is going to be a good 9.2 acorns out of 10. But anyways, thanks for watching, have a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.